Oh wow, black-capped chickadee, northern cardinal, American goldfinch, and dark-eyed juncos. What a day for the birds. Oh hey there, welcome to the kitchen. It's April 5th, 2024. We're on our second snow day in a row after a freak spring blizzard. What a perfect opportunity to continue our exploration of fermentation. Today, through bread making. So stay tuned, and if you learned something today, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll know when future videos drop. Okay, so step one, we've got to wake up our yeast. Remember, yeast is a single-celled fungal organism. These guys are dormant. They've been dried out and stored dry and cool in the refrigerator, so we've got to wake them up. And we're going to put them in warm water here. Not too hot, remember, they're living organisms. If we put them in too hot of water, we can kill them. So we're going to wake them up in warm water. Remember that warm water's got molecules that are moving a little bit faster. It's going to be transferred to our yeast, that thermal energy. It's going to help them rev that metabolism up and wake them up and get them going. So here we go, yeast into our warm water. Good. Now, yeast in warm water, that's not going to do much for us. These guys are organisms, again, they need food. And yeast, we know, conduct alcohol fermentation. They produce ethyl alcohol, or ethanol, by breaking down sugar. So we have some simple table sugar here, a tablespoon of sugar, that's their food. So we're going to mix our yeast with warm water and a little bit of sugar here. We're going to mix them up, and we'll give them 10 minutes. Okay, they're going to get 10 minutes to wake up and get to work. And there should be signs of life in there in 10 minutes. And we'll get them all mixed together here, get the sugar all dissolved, the yeast beginning to dissolve, and in 10 minutes we'll check back and see if our yeast have woken up and are ready to do their job. Alright, I'll check back here in a little bit. Okay, here we go. We're back. It's been 10 minutes, moment of truth. We'll take our towel off here. Oh yeah, our yeast are awake. Check out the bubbles and foam we've got going there. We've got that classic smell happening as carbon dioxide and ethanol are released. And things are happening here. The yeast are ready to go. So it's time to move into the next phase of our recipe. So here we go. This is an older recipe from Marjorie Standish's Cooking Down East. And this is a sandwich bread recipe that I love, my kids love. We make toast for breakfast with this and have sandwiches occasionally with it. It's really, really good stuff, and I always have a loaf or two in the freezer. So here we go. Here's how this recipe goes down. We're going to add a few things here. First thing we need is 1 egg beaten, and this is right out of the chicken coop outside, so there you go. We'll get that in there. The next thing we're going to need is a 1/2 cup of cooking oil. She says cooking oil in there. We're just going to use vegetable oil here. And this reminds me, all of our ingredients here today are sourced locally, whether right from the chicken coop or from our local Saco Hannaford supermarket. You guys know how much I love Hannaford. I'm in there every day, one of my favorite places ever. And Hannaford is actually the sponsor of today's video. So thank you, Hannaford, because at Hannaford, together, we're greater than groceries. All right, back to our video here. We're going to add the oil, 1/2 cup of cooking oil in there. Okay. A little bit of oil. We'll let that finish pouring. Now we've got 1/3 cup of sugar going in addition to that tablespoon of sugar we initially gave the yeast to feed them. We got that going in. Now our recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of salt. Let me grab that. 1 tablespoon of salt coming up. Salt is going in. 1 tablespoon of salt into the mix here. Okay, so we've got our cooking oil, our beaten egg, our 1/3 cup of sugar, a tablespoon of salt. Now we need 3 cups of lukewarm water. So let's grab that right from the tap here. 3 cups lukewarm water coming at you. Just a minute. 3 cups of lukewarm water going in. And now the star of the show here. Time to add our flour. So this recipe calls for about 9 cups of flour. So I don't add it all at once. We'll go maybe 3 cups to start with here. And I'm kind of eyeballing roughly 3 cups. You could weigh this out to get exact, but I've done this a million times and kind of know roughly how much flour to add here and what I want it to look like when all is said and done. So here we go. 3 cups of flour in. We're going to take our wooden spoon. We're going to mix it all up here and get it to just start to thicken up. And look at how frothy that yeast is. It is alive and working. Now we're using bread flour here. We're using King Arthur unbleached bread flour, which is a little higher protein content and allows that gluten to really set up and make some nice fluffy bread when all is said and done. So there's 3 cups. Don't let me lose count here. 3 cups of flour in there, starting to smooth out. Now if we had a mixer, we could use a stand mixer here, and this would maybe save our arm a little bit, but come on now. A little bit of elbow grease never hurt anybody. So here we go. Let's add 3 more cups. Let's see. 1 there. Another one there. That's probably a little short of 3, but that's all right. So we're up to about 6 cups now. And we're going to mix this around. It's going to thicken up. I find that if you add all 9 at once, it's kind of a challenge to get it to come together well. So we gradually add that flour, 3 cups at a time. Oh yeah. Coming together now a little bit. And I'm just pulling in the dry stuff from the edges as I mix it around. The old wooden spoon here. Okay, we got about 3 more cups to add, and we are going to be in business. This is going to take probably a fresh bag of flour here. I've got a little left in that bag, but I like to save that to use it a little later on in the process. So here we go. We're going to open a fresh bag of flour, and we have 2 more to put in. Boy, I find that bags of flour never open well. Oh my goodness. Whoa, okay. We're gonna have to cut this. Oh, we're gonna have to cut this out. This is not good. Okay. Here we go. All right, here we go. So we've got 2 more cups to go in. And it looks like it's really gonna be a lot here, but it'll come together. It'll come together. So let's go. Let's try to keep our arm from falling off mixing here. Here we go. All right, it's gonna thicken up. You're gonna come around and add that flour in there and let that all come together real nice into one big ball of dough. This is going to produce 3 nice loaves of bread for us, so it looks like a lot, and that's because it is. I make 3 loaves at a time and then freeze them, and I don't have to make bread for a while. Go. Coming together pretty well now into one really nice kind of blob here. Pretty sticky. That's good too. Try to get this to all come together. We're going to pull this out and end up kneading all of this together here in a little bit anyway. We're going to try to get this all into kind of one big blob of dough. And we're going to transfer it over into another bowl to let it rise for the first time. So here we go. Let's try to scrape all this off here. Maximize our dough. Now, here we go. I'm going to grab our second bowl and we'll oil that bowl so the bread doesn't stick. And then we'll transfer our dough over. So we're going to take just a little bit of oil here in our second bowl. Get that bowl nice and oiled down, all of the surfaces, and that'll keep our dough from sticking too bad. And here we go. We're going to transfer this right over into there, like so. Into the bowl it goes. Nice, a little bit smaller bowl. Press that down in there. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of oil on the top here. I'm going to wipe down the top. little bit of oil. Just till it is saturated with oil on the top. Looking fairly compact and smooth. Now, we're going to take this and we're going to set it in a warm place for about 30 minutes. And when we come back, I got a funny feeling this is going to look a little bit different. Now remember, those yeast are in there, they're still alive, they're nice and warm, they've got that sugar they need. They're going to begin to conduct fermentation, and as they do, they're going to produce carbon dioxide. They're going to be trapped in there, there's no oxygen around them, so they're going through fermentation without oxygen, and they're going to begin to produce carbon dioxide. Those carbon dioxide bubbles will build up in our dough, and they should cause the dough to rise. So let's see if we're right. We'll give it 30 minutes, and we'll be right back. Okay, here we go. It's been about 30 minutes. Let's grab our bread out of our warm spot here over by the stove. We'll grab it. We'll bring it over here and see if we've noticed any changes in our dough. All right, it's been about 30 minutes. Let's grab that dough and see if we can notice any changes. Oh yeah, big time. We have had some rising going on in there. Those yeast are happy, they're awake. We're going to take this wooden spoon now. We're going to punch this down. We're poking holes. You can see it deflating. We're allowing all that CO2 to escape. All of that carbon dioxide is escaping now. We're punching our dough down. And we're going to get it all knocked back here. So here we go. Punching down the dough. And now the yeast is really awake. So we're going to put this dough away one more time. And this time will probably only take about 10 or 15 minutes. We'll let this get back to about where it was before. And we'll check it again. So we'll allow it to rise again. We're just letting that yeast really wake up and get going. And get all of that chemistry, all that fermentation up and running. So here we go. We'll check back in just a few minutes. All right, we're back. About 10 minutes have gone by. We're going to pull that bowl of dough out here one more time. We've given it a second chance to rise. The reason we're doing this is we're allowing that fermentation to really get going. We're also allowing that water to really mix in all throughout the flour and help to develop our gluten. And gluten is just a long chain of proteins in bread that give it that stretchy feeling. It's going to allow our bread to really trap carbon dioxide well and eventually rise and get a nice texture. And we'll take a look at this dough now and see if it's continuing to rise. Whoa, there we go. We're back above the top of the bowl, and it's go time here. So we're going to punch this down one more time, get that CO2 out of there. Oh, you can see it deflating as we hit it with the wooden spoon here. Here we go. Punching it down. Getting all of that CO2 out of there. And you can see that dough is starting to get really stretchy. That's what we want. That gluten is starting to develop in there really well. This is going to be some awesome bread. So here we go. I'm going to lay some flour down on our countertop that's been cleaned here. And this is going to be our surface where we really allow the dough to proof a little bit and rest. And do all of our kneading and everything. So here we go. I'm going to take this, grab some of our dough off of the spoon here. Don't want to waste that. And then we'll get this dough out of here and onto the table now. So here we go. Now we get the dough out on the table. You can still see these big carbon dioxide bubbles in there. And here we go. Now the best part. We're gonna punch this down. We're gonna give it the old karate chop technique. So here we go. Are we ready? And oh yeah. Oh, that's pretty satisfying right there. That's the good stuff. Yep. Okay. Here we go. So we're gonna punch this all down. Punching our dough down. And there we go. We're gonna lay it out on the table here, on the countertop, and we're gonna give it 10 minutes to rest. And in 10 minutes, we'll come back and get going. Don't go anywhere. All right, and we're back now. It's been 10 minutes. The dough has been allowed to rest here on the table. So it's time for us to break this into 3 pieces and start thinking about getting our loaves together here. So stand by. We're going to take a knife and we're going to just cut our dough maybe right like this. Start breaking that up and try to do 3 relatively even pieces. These are going to be our loaves of bread here. So you can see just how stretchy this dough is. I try to just feel them, figure out just kind of ballpark weight. I think this one's my biggest one. Yeah, we're going to add a little bit of dough over here. And might take a little bit more for this here. That feels pretty good. Okay, so now it comes time to knead this dough. Kneading is just another process that's going to help stretch those gluten proteins, mix all that water and protein together and really help to develop the gluten in our bread. That's going to help us trap carbon dioxide, and that is what's going to allow our bread to rise and create that texture we want. So here we go. We're gonna add flour as we go so that it's not too sticky. And so we've got flour right here ready for us. We'll add a little flour on the table. We're going to knead each of these little dough balls together here. They've got lumps and stuff in them right now, but the longer we go, the more kneading we do. I'm just stretching and folding it over itself and pushing down. We're stretching those gluten fibers out. I can feel it becoming smoother. I'm going to knead it around and around, over and over again until this becomes smooth feeling, nice and round. And at that point, we'll set it aside for a few minutes here. So we can see that bread stretching out. It's becoming smoother looking now. Really developing a nice dough ball here. This is going to be good. Oh man, I can taste that toast already. This stuff is just awesome. Right out of the toaster, a little bit of butter. Oh boy. Yep. So I may speed this up here or I may not. We'll see. You can watch all 3 of these balls coming together and check back in here in a minute. All right, so we're done kneading here. We've got 3 nice uniform dough balls here. I'm going to let these rest for another 10 minutes and really allow that gluten to develop in there and all those bonds between the protein molecules to form. And in 10 minutes, we'll come back and we'll form these into loaves and allow them to rise one last time before we put them in the oven. So stick with me. All right, we're back. It's been about 10 minutes. We've allowed our dough to rest here. The gluten is really developing now. When we give this dough a push, it bounces back. We've got some gluten development. Now, we're going to push our dough down. We're going to flatten it back out, just like we did before. Here, we're going to flatten it, just kind of push them with our fingers, flatten each of these out. And I'm trying to get kind of a longer, kind of rectangular shape out of these. We can see nice, smooth, consistent dough. This is great stuff. These are going to be good. So I'm going to take this, push it down. Some air bubbles forming in there. That's that carbon dioxide building up as those yeast do their thing. You can hear the carbon dioxide escaping as we push it down. We'll flatten out these dough balls here. One more. Flatten these out just like this. Last one. Push all that CO2 back out. Again, over and over. We're allowing that CO2 to build up through fermentation thanks to those yeast. Those yeast are alive in there. They're breaking down that sugar in the dough and they're producing carbon dioxide. You can see those bubbles escaping as we punch this dough down. One last time. All right. There's some pretty big CO2 bubbles in there still. So last time here before we get ready to get our dough into the pan. So let me grab my bread pans. Right here. Here we go. So let's talk about getting these things into the pan. So I'm going to stretch this out, kind of roll it back up onto itself. I'm making almost a big giant roll up here. So I'm rolling that back onto itself, stretching, pulling it onto itself, just like that. Kind of a big, there's my future loaf of bread right there. Now take the pan, pop that in there like that. There's one. Ready to go. We'll do our next one here. So again, I'm going to pull and roll, pull and roll. I'm stretching. You can hear some of those gas bubbles escaping. That's good. Pull and roll, pull and roll. There. Put together here. And into the pan. There's loaf number 2. Into the pan. And here comes our final one. So, pull and roll. Getting that loaf structure. Rolling that dough up here. Here we go. So this will be our final loaf. Into the pan we go. And there you have it, 3 future loaves of bread. Now, in a moment, I'm going to move these over to the stove, and we'll talk about their final time rising, and then we'll get them in the oven. So stay tuned. Well, here we go. It's time to get this bread rising. We're over here at the oven. I've got the oven preheated at 450 degrees. That's the initial temperature the bread will go in at after it's done with its final rise here. The top of the oven, because it's nice and warm in there, has become warm itself, and we've got warm air coming out of the front of the oven here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to lay our loaves that still need to rise. We're going to lay them on top of the oven. We're trying to find a nice warm place. Now, when I was a kid, my mom would have laid these right behind the wood stove. But I don't have a wood stove, so we're going to do it this way. I'm going to take this clean towel here. I'm going to lay it over the top just like this. And that's going to allow the warm air rising out of the front of the oven. Now warm air rises, right? Because it's buoyant compared to cold air. That warm air rising, I think we call it convection. We may or may not have talked about that already. So that warm air is going to rise through convection up in there. It's going to help to warm these loaves and create that perfect environment for the yeast to do their thing and create those CO2 bubbles, get that bread to stretch and rise with those gluten molecules holding it all together, and it should create a pretty awesome loaf of bread. Well, we're back. It's been about 25-30 minutes, and our bread has risen. If you look, you can see a little bit of a difference here in our towel. So here's the moment of truth. We'll pull the towel off and take a look here and see, oh yeah, now we've got some nice loaves setting up there. The dough has risen. We can see the top there. So we're going to put this in for about 10 minutes at 450 degrees. Now that's a nice high temperature on purpose. That's going to start to create a crust on the bread very rapidly. As the bread warms up, the yeast are going to really get going. The bread will continue to rise. Those yeast are going to die once they hit 140 degrees. They're dead. Their job is done, and they're gone. And then after 140 degrees, that bread will continue to come up in temperature. The water in the bread will begin to turn to steam and evaporate out. That steam and the expansion of water as it turns from liquid to gas will also help to stretch those little pockets inside the bread, and we'll get ourselves a nice uniform loaf of bread with all these tiny little CO2 bubbles that are locked in place, and we should have a nice consistent loaf of sandwich bread here, but we'll see. So again, into the oven at 450 degrees for 10 minutes. Then we're going to lower the temperature to 325 degrees for an additional 25 minutes. And then I'll come back when it's all done and we'll haul them out and take a look at them. They should rise even more while they're in there baking, and we'll see. Now, as we put these in the oven, can't help but mention our sponsor over here of the day, Hannaford Supermarket, because together we're greater than groceries. So let's get these things in the oven here. Let's open this up. Oh yeah, oh it's hot in there. 450 degrees, in they go, all 3 of them on the top rack, and here we go. We'll get those 10 minutes, and then another 25 at 325, and then we'll check back in. Well, it's that time. Our bread is ready to come out of the oven. Here we go. Let's take a look. Perfect. Got a great crust on there. We'll take this out and see what's going on. All right. Some nice looking loaves of sandwich bread here. So we're going to let those cool. We'll toss them on the racks here in just a minute. And in the meantime, we'll take a look at a loaf that we made the other day and have a little toast taste test. So stay tuned. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at what this bread that we just made will look like on the inside. Here's a loaf that we just thawed out the other day. If you look in here, this is the texture of this bread is referred to as the crumb. And you can see all these little open, airy pockets that are where carbon dioxide built up, the bread dough stretched. And those are basically just carbon dioxide bubbles frozen in time. And you can imagine how that bread rose and became kind of spongy. And then as we cooked the water off, it hardened into that loaf of bread with a nice crust around the outside. And then the crumb there, all those little air pockets that are locked in there in between. So I'm going to throw some of this into the toaster. And I'm going to give this a nice slice like this. Throw a couple pieces in the toaster. And then I have a few taste testers willing to give it a try here to let us know what they think. Here we go. All right, and we're back here, and I have a couple of volunteer taste testers. We've got Scarlett and we've got Aaron ready to try our homemade bread. So let's see what you think, guys. Give it a taste, think about it, and tell me what you think.
It's good. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 says Aaron. Scarlett approves. There you go. Homemade bread, you guys could do it too. You could follow the exact same recipe. You can make this right at home, and it's all science, right? Science is everywhere around us. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
We love science. But also, if you don't have time to go through all this and make your own bread, remember, you could support today's sponsor, Hannaford Supermarket. Head right down there. They've got a wide selection of breads available. And, because remember, at Hannaford together, we're greater than groceries.